No one inside the arena understood what they were witnessing at first. The lights dimmed, the music faded, and Arisa LeBroc stood alone in the center of the ring, motionless, breathing slowly, as if trying to steady a storm inside her chest. The mask she always wore, the one symbol that had protected her identity since her very first appearance, glowed faintly under the spotlight. Fans expected her usual entrance, maybe even another surprise attack. But this time, something felt different. Something heavier! Something quietly heartbreaking. A ripple of whispers moved through the crowd. Phones rose like a field of fireflies, their screens trembling in uncertain hands. Even the commentators fell silent. Arisa didn't move. She only looked out at the people who had followed her journey, who had screamed her name, who had turned her mask into an icon. And then, as the hush deepened, she lifted her hands. The arena gasped. Her fingers reached the edge of the mask slow, hesitant, almost fearful. Everyone could see her hands shaking. She wasn't the fierce warrior the world knew. She was someone standing on the edge of a truth she could no longer hide. A soft breath escaped her lips, carrying years of unspoken secrets. Fans leaned closer. Some even shouted for her to stop. Others begged for her to continue. Every heartbeat in the building synced together, forming a silence louder than any chant. And then, in one fluid, fragile motion, Arisa removed the mask. The arena erupted. Screams, shock, disbelief, all mixed into one overwhelming sound filled the air. What should have been a triumphant reveal felt instead like a confession. Everything changed in that single, trembling second. For a moment, Arisa thought the screams meant support. But as the noise sharpened, she realized the truth wasn't nearly as comforting. People weren't cheering, they were panicking. The shock wasn't celebration. It was a tidal wave of confusion and betrayal. Fans shouted her name, but it no longer sounded like the adoration she once cherished. It sounded like a demand. Why now? What does this mean? Is she leaving? Hundreds of questions, none with answers she could give. The cameras zoomed in on her uncovered face, capturing every tremble, every flicker of doubt in her eyes. The mask had been her shield, her mystery, her power. Without it, she felt exposed in a way she wasn't prepared for. She tried to speak, but the noise drowned her voice. She took a step back, then another. The ropes behind her pressed into her spine as if reminding her she couldn't escape this moment. Backstage officials rushed toward the ring, uncertain whether to stop the chaos or protect her from it. Some were frustrated she had acted without permission. Some were worried she looked like she might collapse. And some simply stared, knowing this moment would change her legacy forever. A small group of devoted fans reached toward the barricade, their faces softening as they realized she was struggling. But the majority were too overwhelmed to show kindness. Their reactions cut deeper than any injury she'd suffered in the ring. She felt tears gather, though she fought them back fiercely. Arisa had imagined this reveal for years, dreaming of applause, relief, and pride. Instead, she was met with a shock so powerful it made her question who she was without the mask. In the middle of the ring, surrounded by thousands, she had never felt more alone. The moment Teresa stepped through the curtain, the noise changed. Quieter, sharper, colder. Backstage wasn't a sanctuary tonight. It was a storm waiting for her. No one yelled, but the silence around her felt like judgment. Officials exchanged looks. Producers whispered. A few wrestlers stared openly, unsure whether to console her or demand an explanation. A veteran approached first, arms crossed, voice low. "You weren't supposed to do that tonight?" Arisa didn't respond. She didn't have the strength to. Her hands were still trembling from the reveal. She felt the air heavy around her, full of opinions she wasn't ready to hear. Someone else asked, "Did something happen? Did you get bad news?" Another muttered, "This will break the internet." For the wrong reasons. The pressure she had carried for years suddenly multiplied. She thought removing the mask would feel liberating. Instead, she felt like she had opened a door to a room filled with versions of herself she didn't want to confront. What if she had made a mistake? What if the mask had been holding her together more than she ever realized? She paced slowly, trying to find her breath. Every step echoed in the hallway like a reminder of the choice she couldn't undo. A few younger wrestlers offered gentle smiles, trying to lift the weight off her shoulders. But even their kindness couldn't reach the place where fear had settled. Her phone buzzed, relentlessly messages from family, trending alerts. News headlines multiplying by the second. Social media was unraveling the moment already, crafting theories, analyzing her expression, freezing her vulnerability into a loop that millions would replay. And in that long hallway filled with lights and shadows, Arisa realized something she wasn't ready for. Removing the mask wasn't the end of her struggle. It was the beginning. Arisa sat alone in the dim locker room, phone still vibrating beside her. She didn't dare pick it up. Her family was watching. She knew it. Her younger sister always streamed the shows live, cheering every moment. Her father rarely showed emotion, but he understood the meaning of the mask better than anyone. It wasn't just part of her brand. It was part of their history, part of a promise she made years ago when wrestling was the only thing holding her life together. She never removed it publicly. Not once! Not until tonight! A soft knock on the door broke her thoughts. When it opened, a close friend stepped inside another wrestler, someone who knew her fears better than the audience ever could. They didn't speak immediately. They just sat beside her, letting the silence settle. "You didn't do anything wrong," her friend finally whispered. Arisa pulled her knees close, shaking her head. But it didn't feel right. They weren't ready. "I wasn't ready!" Her friend exhaled slowly. "People react loudly when they care. Even if it's messy. Even if it hurts. You showed them something real. That's terrifying. But it's also powerful." Arisa lowered her gaze. "My family. What if they think I threw everything away? Or what if they think you finally set yourself free?" The words sank into her like a quiet truth she hadn't considered. The legacy she carried was heavy, but maybe it wasn't meant to be worn forever. Maybe the mask hid more than her face. Maybe it hid fears she had never dared admit. Outside the locker room, the arena was still buzzing. Reporters gathered. Fans debated. The world spun faster than she could process. But inside this small room, for the first time all night, she felt the faintest hint of calm. Hours later, after the arena emptied and the lights dimmed, Arisa walked back to the ring. The silence felt strangely comforting. No cameras, no fans, no pressure. Just the soft echo of her footsteps and the mask she held loosely in her hand. She placed it on the center of the canvas right, where she had been standing during the reveal. It looked smaller now, almost fragile, like a memory she wasn't sure she needed anymore. She breathed in deeply, letting the moment settle into her bones. But then her phone buzzed again. One message. One voice. Note. From her father. With hesitant hands, she pressed play. His voice was quiet, softer than she had heard in years. "I saw what happened tonight," he said. "And I want you to know something. You didn't disappoint us. You didn't break the tradition. You honored it, because the mask was never meant to protect your identity from the world. It was meant to protect your heart until you were strong enough to show it. Tonight, you proved that you are." Arisa covered her mouth as tears finally escaped, not from fear, but relief and emotion she hadn't felt since her very first match. She looked at the mask again, but now it held a different meaning. Not a burden. Not a shield. A chapter. One she could close without losing herself. As she turned to leave, she whispered softly, "This isn't the end. It's the first time I'm starting as me." And in a twist, no one expected, not the fans, not the media, not even Arisa herself. The viral moment that seemed like a breakdown became something far more powerful. A rebirth. A new beginning built, not on mystery, but on truth. And sometimes, that's the most shocking reveal of all.